Aside from the regular oranges or tangerines or lemons that you buy, you realize there's just hundreds and hundreds of types of citrus. In this video, we're going to harvest 10 of the cultivars that we have here in our home orchard. Let's get busy. Hey, this is Cameron. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. In this video, I'd like to walk through how to harvest citrus, some best practices for that. We've got some tools to do that. And I'm gonna do kind of a quick tour and talk a little bit about the kinds of cultivars that we've got planted in our orchard. It is wonderful when all the deciduous stuff goes dormant, like those nectarines back there, those peaches. Winter time has set in, and that is exactly when so much of our citrus is ripe and ready to eat. That's one thing that's wonderful about our climate here in Southern California, is that we're able to grow stuff generally year round. Citrus should definitely grow on our property because this all used to be lemon groves. And so it's no surprise that citrus is doing well, even for us right now. Now, we have something like maybe 12 or 13 cultivars of citrus fruit that are growing on here on our property. Most of them are sweet and kind of edible and able to eat out of hand. And so I'd like to walk through what some of those types are, as well as showing you how to harvest them and also how to store them. So when it comes to storing things like nectarine or some of these other fruit apples, you think, well, do you dry them or do you can them or what do you do? But when it comes to citrus, there's a saying that says the best place to store citrus fruit and the best way to store it is just on the tree. You just leave it on there until you're ready to come and pick it, and that usually keeps the fruit the most fresh. And that really is wonderful because citrus usually has a really long hang time, unlike my Santa Rosa plum, which is maybe all of it ripe over the span of a week or two. This citrus can be on here sometimes for months. I'm thinking of my little Satsuma mandarins down here. There's still a few of them on here. These are really start getting ready in like November. There's some hiding back there. I think some of the pests, I don't know if it's pests or my kiddos have gotten to them, but they're still hanging on there waiting for me to come and pick them off. There are two main reasons you want to use a decent pair of snips for this. One, when you go and you pull this fruit off of the tree and you leave part of it on the tree, you end up with a fruit that is exposed. And if your fruit remains exposed like this, especially if you've got a bunch of them, they start going bad really quick. They start drying out. You don't want that on a fruit. You want a nice, juicy, tasty orange or mandarin. Another reason you want to go and snip your fruit off, your citrus fruit off, is if you go on and you yank that citrus off of the tree, sometimes you're going to take some more of the tree with it than you meant to. And that can cause damage to your tree. You can just break off foliage you didn't mean to. And so being able to come through with a pair of snips, and these are rounded, so that's pretty nice and convenient. You almost can just go straight around it, snip it. Now look, well, aside from that little bird probably that pecked it, everything else looks good. This looks like what you'd find in the store. Okay, well, we're here at the first two of our citrus trees. One is our Washington Navel orange. This is your standard navel that you're gonna usually find at your store. This is so tasty. Kind of an interesting factoid, the mother tree of the Washington Navel, the one that is the start of all of the Washington Navel in the entire world, is pretty nearby here in Riverside, California. It's still alive. They've grafted on new roots to it. It's really amazing how they're just babying this thing. But anyway, this is this is one of the first ones that ripens up. So we have Washington Navel here, and then next to it, we've got what they call Cara Cara orange. Looks like some sort of animal has found how to eat it, and it wasn't me. And Cara Cara orange, it looks a lot like Washington Navel. It is another type of navel orange, only this one has a kind of pinkish hue to it. The flavor's a little bit different than a Washington Navel, and it's a nice variety. It ripens up a little bit later than the Washington Navel in our experience. And that pinkishness is this, it's got this substance called lycopene in it. I think that's how you pronounce it. And that lends itself to that different color. And when we do the taste test a little later, I'll cut that open, you'll see what it looks like. All right, let's move on to our mandarins. Okay, so I featured these mandarins in a recent video where I was looking at the multi-planting of citrus like this, really close planted, probably about 3 feet from trunk to trunk. We have our Satsuma mandarin, our honey mandarin, these little guys over here, and our gold nugget mandarin. And these all are successively ripening. And that's a concept of backyard orchard culture where you have one variety that's ready. Let's say the satsumas are ready starting in November, and then you've got the honey mandarin that start probably in January or so, and then these gold nugget. If I have the order right, these are I think it finishes off with gold nugget maybe in March or April. I'm still going to see if I can find one that's ripe and cut it open as part of our harvest. Okay, kind of next door to these citrus over here are our Valencia orange, which is actually more of a summer fruit. I think it's maybe April through October or something like that. So once the rest of the citrus, the sweet citrus is done, our Valencia orange comes on, but it's got a ton of fruit on it. And then here we have what's called a Tarraco blood orange. Maybe you've seen one of these blood oranges before where it's got a very dark, red interior, and when you cut into that flesh, it almost looks like it's bleeding. This Tarraco blood is not as bloody as like the Moro blood orange. Moro blood, even the outside of the fruit just has a reddish hue on it. So I don't especially like the flavor of the Moro blood, or at least I don't prefer it compared to some of these other cultivars, but they're really neat fruit, and so we'll pick these ripen after the navel oranges, but they might be able to find one or two that are ripe on here and see what that looks like. It'll be interesting. Hey, we're about halfway through our list. Hey, now's a great time, if you haven't done it yet, to hit that subscribe button, the like button, the notification bell. That way you know when new Busy Gardener videos are up. All right, let's keep walking. So over there was our Valencia and Tarraco blood oranges. And so then we come over here and we see Minneola tangelo, or is it tangelo? I've heard Tom Spellman call it tangelo, but I grew up calling it a tangelo. Anyway, do you notice how red these are? Almost reddish. And with most of the citrus, kind of an easy way to say it with the sweet fruit is that the redder the better. So it's certainly true for these tangelos. If you pick them too early, these are very sour. So think like a tangerine with some kind of interesting characteristics, maybe more tart tangerine, or mandarin is kind of what these are like. And so these are a really unique fruit that are tasty. These kind of ripen up a little later than those navel oranges. Well, right next to our tangelos in this 2-in-1 planting are these interesting things. Now, if you looked at this, what would you immediately think that you're looking at? If you're like me, you'd think, well, that's a grapefruit, and it kind of is. What it is, it's a cocktail grapefruit hybrid. They have taken kind of the best attributes of a grapefruit, the flavor, and have crossed it in a way where it resulted in a very sweet, not especially bitter fruit that is super juicy. The juice is really tasty. And so this is a really unique thing. I wish that there was a way to upload the flavor of something so that way you could just taste it. Because I don't especially like grapefruit because they're just kind of bitter and kind of and you have to throw sugar on it to make them tasty. This kind of has done the work for you. It has a really thin skin. Unfortunately, I'm not able to really eat them anymore because I'm on statins for cholesterol, and so that medication can interact with grapefruit, and it does also with this hybrid, and that can affect the amounts that are in your system. Unfortunately, this is one of those where I can just have like a taste of it as opposed to eat the entire fruit. But very, very unique fruit, this cocktail grapefruit hybrid. Okay, well here we're standing right by my lemon-lime combo, and this is where we have a Eureka lemon, we have a Persian lime, and then we have what's called a Pomona sweet lemon. And these are all distinct fruit. If you're gonna go out and buy a lemon at the store, this is probably what you're buying, is a Eureka lemon. Very, very popular, this is the commercial crop. Also the Persian lime, which I'm sure that you've seen before. Something you might not be aware of is that a lime that is ripe is actually kind of yellow. This is where the flavor of the lime is the strongest and the flavor has had a chance to fully develop. Even if it turns yellow on the outside, the inside is still that green color of a normal lime. So I think the reason why they pick them early and sell them green is so that you can tell the difference between those and a lemon. And you're so used to seeing limes green that you probably would not think that this is a lime and probably wouldn't buy it. But I actually like to pick them when they are this color as opposed to just green because the flavor is more developed and I just like it better. Another interesting thing is that if you haven't grown citrus before, if you've just had deciduous fruit like apples or, nectarines or whatever it is, where the leaves fall off, usually it flowers, it leaves out, it fruits, and then everything falls off. Well, on an evergreen citrus like this, it's totally different than that. You can see that this has fruit on it, this lime, but it also has flowers at the same time. So you see this lemon, this Eureka lemon has blooms right here and a ripe fruit right behind it. As you're going and you're making decisions on which fruit to pick, you want to pick, I mentioned earlier, you want to pick that which is redder. The more red that it is, the better it is, generally speaking. And another thing to do is if you notice that your fruit still has green on it, so this one looks like it's kind of reddish on that side, but on this side you might notice a green blush. And I'm hoping that's coming through. This isn't quite ready to pick. Another way to tell really quickly and easily if citrus is very ripe and ready to come off is if you go to it and you give it a light tug. If it pops off, that citrus is ready to go. Okay, so we've talked through a number of these cultivars, and now it's time to take the ones that are ripe and harvest them. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Busy Gardener, where we talked through some ways to harvest citrus, some ways to store citrus, and really doing kind of a citrus tour of the different cultivars that we've got growing here that are ripe right now in late January. In the next video, we're gonna do a taste test, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Hey, whether you've got one orange tree growing in your orchard or 500, until next time, stay busy.